And yet Inspector Hosonaga never heard the professor scream, not on that day or any before it. That's right, and the strange thing is, on the day he was shot, I didn't hear him cry out either. What are you suggesting? Well, the professor had carelessly laid his wrist on the plate for anything like 3 seconds that day.
That would be beyond careless, I think, Counsel.
And the rest of us in the restaurant, myself, the sergeant, the old antiques dealer, all of us will, without any question, have heard him scream. Wouldn't you agree, Professor Auchi? Yes, I suppose. So the question is, why didn't a single person hear Dr. Wilson scream? I almost don't believe it. Ryunosuke, do you think... There's only one explanation I could think of that makes any sense of this apparent impossibility. Yes, the professor, being as absent-minded as usual, was unaware of his hand falling on the piping hot plate and didn't even notice the burn happening. You didn't even know the professor, and yet here you are labeling him as a bumbling scatterbrain. How about I hold your wrist on a hot plate and we see how your bumbling scatterbrain copes? Perhaps the scream you let out will wake you up a bit. Well, it's nice that there's this frankness developing between us, partner. Don't call me partner after coming out with nonsense like that. This is a critical moment. It may very well be our only chance to turn this thing in our favor. So come on, Ryunosuke, you can do it. Or rather, you have to do it. You're the only one who can. What the I thought he was numb because of his anesthetic stuff. There's only one explanation I could think of to make sense of this apparent impossibility. Yes, the professor with his tendency to nod off was asleep when his hand fell on the piping hot plate and didn't even notice the burn happening. What? I don't get how he's dead. No man could remain silent while his wrist was burning on him.
Counsel, are you suggesting...
Yes, it's only possible if the man was already dead. Already?
Dead?
Knowing what we know now, it's the only possible explanation. When the beefsteak was brought to Dr. Wilson's table that day, the professor was already dead. That's madness.
Order, please. Counsel, explain this absurd notion at once. The victim was killed by a gunshot.
That's right. That's absolutely right, Your Excellency. This is just another ridiculous ploy by the rookie student, but clearly he has no grasp of the facts. No, Prosecutor Ayuchi, it's you who has no grasp of the facts. I beg your pardon? As soon as it became apparent that the victim had suffered the burn while at the restaurant, this whole case was turned upside down. Or have you not grasped that yet? Your Excellency, the court must hear from this witness again. If it's true, as we now believe, that the victim was already dead before the gunshot was heard, it's highly likely that Miss Brett knows something about it.
Incredible. I certainly didn't anticipate this twist of events. I'm sorry to say, Miss Brett, that you will have to forget your luncheon engagement.
But Your Excellency,
the justice system in our country may be in its infancy, but rest assured, all reasonable doubt must be dispelled before I am prepared to pass judgment.
thank you, Your Excellency. Yes, of course. I mean, I'd be delighted to help, especially if it helps relationships between my country and yours. Miss Brett, you speak Japanese? Well, of course I do. I'm studying in your country after all.
But then why have you been speaking through an interpreter until now?
My mother tongue, the Queen's English, is the most refined and elegant language in the world. As a gentlewoman, I try to avoid speaking in your vulgar tones as much as possible. But it seems that the men in this land possess none of the chivalrous virtues of English gentlemen. So I can see that I shall have to lower myself to communicating with you all on your own level. You're the epitome of it. You are truly honored by this.
I see. In that case, Miss Brett, I will now ask you to testify in your own words about the events leading up to the death of the victim, Dr. Wilson.
So we're finally going to hear her own words on the matter. Things are getting interesting, Ryunosuke. Unfortunately, I have no idea where the poor man burns his wrist like that. When the waiter brought my steak, the professor and I raised our glasses in a toast. As far as I've heard, the post-mortem report showed no other possible cause of death besides a gunshot. If there's some other way a man's life can be taken without leaving a trace, please do show me. But of course, this country's inferior investigative techniques probably won't put up on it anyway.
That most captivating and beautiful testimony will go down in the Supreme Court's history. Thank you.
I hope that is the last time I will have to sully my lips with the coarse tones of your unbecoming tongue. Forgive me, I do hope I haven't insulted anyone. And it seems very clear from your testimony that this boorish talk of the victim's burn is utterly irrelevant. I'll be speaking to your country's Minister of Justice about what has happened here today. The Minister of Justice? May that irritating little bully of a student be given the harshest punishment possible. Amen. We have to forgive the irritation, Miss Brett, and put up with cross-examination now. I expect you noticed that this little bully of a student, as you put it, doesn't miss much.
I'm sure I don't need to remind you, counsel, that this will be your final cross-examination in this trial. If you fail to demonstrate any problems with this witness's testimony, I will be ruling on the case immediately. Is that clear?
Yes, Your Excellency.
Then you may proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes!
As you testified before, you were drinking carbonated water, is that right? Dr. Wilson was only permitted to drink water at that time, if you remember. Which explains why he ordered that drink, correct, waiter?
Exactly as you say, sir. Although, whether or not the professor actually drank any of the water when it delivered the stick to the table, I'm afraid that I don't remember that.
Damn you.
Yes!
Yes, it is written here in the paperwork. Fatal hemorrhage from ballistic trauma. Luckily for all of us, a little burn on the wrist isn't going to kill us. And as there were no signs of trauma on the victim's body to indicate some other cause of death, it can only have been the bullet from your gun that put an end to this innocent man's life. But it doesn't make sense. The burn must have happened straight away when the plate was first brought to the table by the waiter. Yes, that's true. If it had cooled even slightly, it wouldn't have been able to make a burn like that. And if the victim burned his wrist on the hot plate as soon as it was brought out from the kitchen, then he must have already been dead at that point.
Objection!
And yet, the fact is that the victim was killed by a gunshot to the chest. And so you're able to show the court evidence to disprove that. This is a complete waste of time.
I concur. Prosecutor Iuchi is right.
Yes!
If someone is shot or strangled or stabbed or thrown from a height, however a person's life is taken, there are telltale traces on the body. Quite right, dear lady. And as our police force has thoroughly examined the body of the deceased, there can be no doubt. Isn't that right, Inspector Hoso Naga?
As I've said, I always aim for a flawless investigation.
If heaven forbid you doubt me, young man, you're going to have to tell everyone how exactly you think the professor did lose his life. Otherwise, I'm afraid your argument falls rather flat, doesn't it? We need some evidence to back us up here.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Inferior? What do you mean by that? In the lands of the Great British Empire, the police store everything found in... But in this country, you investigate once and that's the end of it. Isn't that so? Quite right. La Carnival is open for business as usual, just days after the incident. Exactly, what means that even if the investigation takes a different direction, which vital evidence may be lost. It doesn't even occur to your naive detectives to try to preserve the crime scene. I'm trying to be as tactful about this as I can, you understand? Amazing. He's actually admitting our police may be flawed. Perhaps Prosecutor Ayuchi is finally starting to see the sense. I very much doubt that. What do you think, Ryunosuke? I think it's going terribly. No matter how much I press her, I'm not turning up any new information. Yes, as I suspected, she's a tough witness. We need to find a way to break her testimony, or the cross-examination will be over. But that would mean... Kazuma? What were you, Ryunosuke? There's one thing I noticed, something that's been bothering me. Bothering you? You mean about Miss Brett? Actually, no. About the person standing next to her. Inspector Hosonaga. The detective? Yes, he seemed to react a little strangely to Miss Brett's last statement. I was wondering if it might be significant. If it might present an opening, maybe. Alright, I have an idea. Try pressing her on that last statement one more time. If you think so, but this time, instead of targeting the woman herself, let's see what we can get out of the detective. Alright then.
Yes! Wait.
Up until now, the detective has been in the stand with Miss Brett as her interpreter. But things are very different now. For this testimony, the detective is just listening to what the Englishwoman has to say. This could be a golden opportunity. What do you mean? When people are actually testifying, they're usually very careful not to let anything slip. However, when they're listening to someone else speak, you'll find they often let their guard down. You're right. It's time to pursue the man in his train of thought. Sorry, pursue? I'll explain how to do it now, Ryunosuke. It's all to do with the witness marker. What marker? At the moment, we're focused on Miss Brett, who's the person actually making the current statement. But by moving the marker left and right, you can turn your attention to other people in the stand. While you're looking at the other witnesses, you'll be able to pursue them with X. If you can catch the person at the right time, you might uncover some new information to pursue. If you ever notice a strange atmosphere amongst the people on the stand, take a good look around. Alright then, so first I should move the marker across.
Wait.
Exactly, which means that if the investigation...
Excuse me.
What's the meaning of this?
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to shock you. It looked like you were thinking something just now, Inspector. Perhaps having heard what the ladies next to you had to say. If there's something you'd like to say, please share it with the court.
Attention!
What is the meaning of this? It's a delightful Englishwoman who's testifying at the moment. If you can't find fault with their testimony, then the cross-examination should be over immediately. Is that how it works? Absolutely not. The detective is in the stand, which makes him a valid witness. Yes, not to mention the fact he's intimately involved in the case.
Inspector Hosonaga? Yes? Do you have something to add in relation to the statement just made by Miss Brett? Well, yes, if you don't mind, I would like to speak. The lady is right. Our country's police practices are not as modern as those used in Great Britain, which is why I, Satoru Hosonaga, always strive to make every investigation I'm involved in flawless.
What do you really mean by that?
I'll tell you what I mean. I won't have evidence lacking on my watch. I'm not afraid to take everything I can from the scene of the crime. It's preserving evidence, you see. I don't care if they call me a crime scene thief. I'm not ashamed of what I've done.
Crime scene thief? Well, it looks like the lady's remarks touched a nerve there.
Take this for example.
Is that?
This is the bottle of the carbonated water that I took to the victim's table on the day in question. And yes, it's lost all of its fizz. Having been opened 3 days ago now. But it was carbonated water. I don't care what anyone says. One day our police force will be among the best in the world. The time is coming, I guarantee it. I can't say I condone the witness's actions, but I do understand the sentiment. The court will accept the glass bottle of water as evidence. Miss Brett, can you confirm this is indeed the bottle from which you drank on the day of the victim's death?
Yes, it was that bottle.
Very well, counsel. You may resume the cross-examination. And the inspector will kindly control his fervor.
Yes!
What is this, the bottle of water?
Actually, there's one method of killing a man without leaving a trace that comes to mind. Obviously, I'm referring to poison. Poison. On the day of his death, we know that Dr. Wilson drank from this bottle of carbonated water. Could it be that there was poison inside? Could it be that the professor actually died after taking a sip from his glass?
Order, order, order.
And on that day, who was sitting at the same table as the professor and able to slip the poison into his drink? There's only one person who could possibly have done it. Josiah Brett. It was you.
Objection!
This is outrageous. Is this thing without a scrap of evidence? You little rookie imbecile, have you even considered the delicate situation? Have you forgotten that we have only signed it? have even the vaguest inkling that your rash accusations could jeopardize?
Objection!
This is not a political arena. This is to try to determine one individual's guilt with respect to one crime. The fact that this woman is British makes no difference. We're here to determine the truth. If I may, I will silence you forever for this. It was you who should be silent. Of course. Dear lady. I'm just afraid I may have spoken unfairly before. I offer my most humble apologies.
I'm sorry, my lady. To what are you referring?
I described your police force as inferior, but no matter how inferior they may be, you still investigated this particular point thoroughly, I believe. The bottle, I mean, Inspector, and whether it contained poison or not.
Of course.
You did?
Have you forgotten what my guiding principle is already? I strive for a flawless investigation every time.
I don't believe it.
Naturally, we tested the inside of the bottle and its contents. And what did you find, Inspector? I ordered tests for every toxin that's available in this country at the present time. We can find no trace of poison of any description in the bottle of carbonated water, Your Excellency.
Are you sure?
The tests were meticulously carried out by the chief coroner himself.
I'm very grateful to all you Japanese. You successfully established my complete innocence in this horrid affair. Thank you. But of course, dear lady, the presence was all yours. Ours. This can't be right. Everything falls into place if he was poisoned.
Thank you, Counsel. I think the cross-examination has clarified everything. As the prosecution have asserted, a shot to the chest from this gun is the only conceivable cause of death. Furthermore, the accused who by his own admission was holding this weapon is the only possible culprit. The court wishes to apologize for the great inconvenience this has caused you, Miss Brett.
I'm just glad the matter is resolved.
Before proceeding, I must ask the counsel for the defense. Do you have any further new evidence to present the court at this point?
I'm sorry, Inosuke. I have nothing more. Well, if you'll excuse me now, I really must be leaving.
Hold it!
Please, wait.
What is the meaning of this?
Forgive me for intruding on court proceedings, Your Excellency. Susato Mikotoba, judicial assistant to the defense. Mikotoba? In my darkest hour where no one left to go, she appeared like a bolt of lightning, and in her hand she carried a small package wrapped in a furoshiki cloth. Alright guys, that's where I'm going to take a break. Thanks for watching.